You're handsome, you know that? The words landed like a dropped wrench in an empty hallway. Sharp, loud, impossible to ignore. Malik Carter froze mid-turn, flathead screwdriver still between his fingers. Above him, the ceiling light flickered once, then steadied, casting a warm amber glow across the bedroom. He blinked, looking down from the fixture to the woman leaning in the doorway. Maya Williams. Barefoot, 30-something. The soft blue dress she wore clung gently to her frame, effortless and elegant. Her arms were crossed, but her face gave nothing away. Malik straightened, throat dry. Thanks, he said, the words awkward, caught between suspicion and surprise. It wasn't the first time a client had complimented him, but this felt different. No flirt, no tease. Just plain truth, spoken without motive. And that unsettled him more than anything. He wiped his hands on the rag at his belt, stepped back from the light switch. Loose ground connection, he said, voice regaining its steady tone. Old house, older wiring. I replaced the terminal, added a surge stabilizer. Shouldn't give you trouble anymore. Maya nodded, but didn't move. You always explain things like that? Calm. Like it's second nature? Malik coiled the old wiring into a plastic bag. Guess so. Clarity matters. Especially when it's someone else's home. That earned him a smile. Small. Subtle. Approval without words. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, but thick. Charged with something unnamed. Maya stepped into the room, bare feet silent on the dark wood floor. You have time for lunch? She asked. There's a place down the street. Smoked Turkey Club. My treat. Malik hesitated. Every lesson he'd learned, every line he'd drawn for himself, said no. Never blur boundaries. Never mix work and personal. Especially not in a house with a 3-car garage and a driveway longer than the block he'd grown up on. But she stood there, waiting. Not pushing. Not pleading. Just asking. I appreciate it, he said at last. But I've got another job in an hour. A half-truth. The next job wasn't urgent, but his discomfort was. Maya tilted her head, studying him. No judgment. Just curiosity. Another time then. She held out her hand. Malik took it, surprised by her grip. Warm, steady, no delicate pretense. Just real. Thanks for the fix, Malik. Anytime. He packed up and walked out. But he felt her gaze on his back the whole way. Not hungry, not coy. Just present. Like someone seeing him. Really seeing him. The truck's engine groaned as it started, AC fighting the Carolina heat. As he pulled onto Providence Road, her name echoed in his head. Williams. Strange how heavy it felt. At a red light, he glanced in the rear view. No reason. Just a glance. By the time he parked at the next house, a worn ranch with peeling paint and a sagging porch step. He'd mostly shaken it. Mostly. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Maya. In case you change your mind. Malik stared at it for a second, then pocketed the phone. Got back to work. He wasn't a man given to fantasy. Raised by a mother who worked double shifts and taught him to solder pipe at 10, to measure twice, cut once. He believed in showing up early, double-checking voltage, doing the job right. He kept his hands steady, his mind sharp, his heart out of the way. But her voice, her gaze, those 5 simple words. They cracked something. A hairline fracture in the shell he wore every day. That night, lying on his worn couch in the apartment above a barber shop, he scrolled to her message again. Just her name. Just 7 words. He typed a reply. Deleted it. Tried again. Stopped. Sighed. Powered off the phone. Told himself to forget it. But he didn't. Not yet. 3 days passed. It wasn't that he didn't want to reply. He just didn't know how. What could he say? That he was flattered? That he couldn't stop thinking about her? That a man with boots worn thin at the soles didn't belong where wine racks had climate control? Friday afternoon, the second message came. Smoked Turkey Club still on the menu. Tomorrow. Noon. I'll drive. Not a question. An invitation. Plain. Bold. Like before. Malik stood in the supply aisle of Bailey's Hardware, the air filled with sawdust and the hum of fluorescence. Everything around him solid. Real. The world he knew. He stared at her message, thumb hovering. And this time, he typed back. Here's a tighter, stronger, and more hook-driven rewrite. 325 words, of that scene. The voice is sharp, emotional, and layered, making every beat land harder. Malik hit send before he could change his mind. Saturday came too fast. He stood outside a small hardware shop on 4th Street, brushing invisible dust from a crisp gray button-down. Not too dressy, not too casual, just presentable. The Carolina sun was high, the air mild. He wiped a bead of sweat from his palm and glanced down the street. At 12:02 sharp, a silver Audi A7 purred to the curb. Sleek, quiet, polished. Maya stepped out, barefoot again, this time in a soft blue dress that shimmered like morning mist. Not the same one as before, but close. Her hair was loosely pinned, tendrils brushing her cheeks. Malik smiled despite himself. Always barefoot. Only when I'm trying to keep things real, she said. The drive was quiet except for the hum of the tires and the sound of wind brushing the cracked window. No music, no filler. Just air in the road as she guided the Audi out of the city, past brick storefronts and aging neighborhoods, and toward the hills. I know a spot, Maya said. 20 minutes later, they pulled off a gravel lane into a clearing tucked between tall pines. A narrow river shimmered just beyond the tree line, and a weathered picnic table sat under the shade of an old oak. Malik got out first, scanning the space like a technician assessing a fuse box, cautious, quiet, observant. Maya emerged from the car with a brown paper bag, barefoot toes brushing the grass as she walked toward the table. They didn't speak right away, just unwrapped their sandwiches, smoked turkey, cranberry aioli, sourdough, and sank into silence. It felt different from the silence that came before. Not awkward, not charged, just settled. Then Maya glanced at him, brushing a crumb from the corner of her mouth. Do you think I'm weird? Malik looked up, surprised. What? I mean, I just asked a guy I barely know to lunch. Drove him out to the woods. No agenda. A shy smile. That's not exactly normal behavior. He shrugged, brushing crumbs from the table. You're not weird. You're unexpected. Is that a compliment? She asked, a tilt of the head. He smirked. It is if you've spent your whole life being ignored. That stopped her. Maya held his gaze for a long moment, then smiled, soft and faint. I don't ignore people. I noticed. The silence that followed felt different again. Lighter. A bridge forming between them. Not strong yet, but real. Maya set down her sandwich and wiped her fingers. I used to come here as a kid, she said quietly. My grandmother brought me. She said the sound of the water could wash away whatever people made you carry. Malik watched the river move across the stones. Smart woman. She raised me more than my parents ever did. She didn't elaborate. He didn't ask. A moment later, she tilted her face toward the sun, eyes closed, long lashes brushing her cheeks. You know what I like about you? Malik smirked. I'm cheap labor. She laughed, soft and genuine. No, you don't ask about my house, or my car, or my job. You don't seem impressed. He shrugged, brushing a hand down the leg of his worn work pants. I was taught not to stare at what doesn't belong to me. Her eyes opened slowly. And what if it does? He met her gaze, held it, said nothing. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because her question felt deeper than belonging. It felt like worth. The wind rustled the oak leaves above them, brushing cool air across the table. I should go, Malik said quietly. Maya didn't move. Will you? He stood, brushing the crumbs from his pants. Not if you ask me to stay. A small smile curved Maya's lips. Then stay. So he did. They stayed until the shadows grew long and the wind turned crisp, until the sound of the river felt like a witness. They talked about nothing and everything. Favorite snacks, worst customers, childhood scars. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't performative. It was honest. For a man who had built a life behind schedules, tools, and caution, it felt like the beginning of something he didn't know he needed. That night, Malik didn't go straight home. He drove the long way, past the diner where his mother had worked double shifts, past the corner where he got jumped at 15, past the high school where no one remembered his name. And when he finally pulled into the tiny lot behind his walk-up, he turned the engine off and just sat. Then the phone buzzed. Maya, next time, you bring the sandwiches. Malik smiled. Just a little. But for the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. The following week was slow. Thick. Molasses slow. Malik buried himself in work, rewiring a ranch house in Monroe, replacing outlets across the city, but Maya's voice refused to leave him. You don't seem impressed. And what if it does? Words repeating in quiet moments. Not because of what they meant, but because of how she said them. Calm. Challenging. Like someone used to being overlooked but tired of it. Then came Wednesday, mid-afternoon. Sweat beaded down his neck as he worked a junction box. His phone buzzed in the back pocket. He wiped his hands and checked. Maya, you free Friday night? Malik replied quickly, too quickly. What's the plan, Maya? Dinner? Maya, my place. Nothing fancy. Malik, should I bring tools? Or wine? Maya, just bring yourself. And maybe don't wear the boots. He smirked. Too late. They were already on. Friday came. Malik stood in front of her door, sleek wood, brushed nickel handle. The same door he'd worked on a week ago. But tonight it felt different. Not like a job. Not like a fix. He rang the bell. The door opened slowly. Maya stood there, barefoot again, soft cardigan hanging loose, hair loosely clipped. No makeup. No designer facade. Just herself. Hey, she said. Evening, he replied, holding up a brown paper bag. Brought some honey cornbread. Store-bought. But I warmed it. She smiled. That's the most southern thing I've heard all week. Come in. The house felt warm. Roasted rosemary and garlic. Soft music low in the background. Not wealthy. Not performative. Just lived in. Malik followed her to the kitchen. 2 plates were set on the island. Candles winked. An R&B track floated in the air. Hope you like salmon, she said, setting down a platter of glazed fillets and roasted vegetables. He shrugged. I like food someone else cooked. So yes, they talked as they ate. About work. Childhood. Funny neighbors. Worst dates. Malik told her about the time he got stuck in a crawl space for 3 hours in July. Maya laughed until she choked on an asparagus spear. At one point, she rested an elbow on the counter, chin in palm, looking at him like she was solving a riddle. You have a quiet way of being loud. He smiled. That a compliment? It is. You don't force presence. You just have it. He didn't have a reply for that. Not in words. But something shifted in the silence between them. After dinner, they drifted to the living room. Maya sank into the corner of an oversized couch. Malik sat at the other end, unsure of the rules. Unsure if there were any. Maya glanced over. You don't have to be polite. He shrugged. I wasn't raised to slouch in a woman's house. She rolled her eyes, smiling. You're allowed to be comfortable. Especially here. That was the shift. The space between them stopped feeling like air and started feeling like gravity. So, Maya said, brushing hair from her temple. You ever wonder what people say about us? Malik exhaled slowly. Probably a lot. Probably none of it good. She nodded, looking out the window. My world is loud. Not just in sound. In noise. In appearances. In expectations. You don't just walk through it unnoticed. Malik didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just met her gaze and said, quietly, I don't aim to. And that was enough. Malik said, but I also don't ask for permission. Maya tilted her head, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. That's what scares them. He met her gaze. What about you? A slow, confident smile. I don't scare easy. Later that night, she walked him to the door. No kiss. No lingering hand. Just a quiet moment shared under the glow of the porch light. Thanks for coming, she said softly. Thanks for the food. He stepped down the stairs, brushing a hand across the worn-wood railing. Hey, she called after him. You still owe me sandwiches. He glanced back. Next time, I'll even toast them. She smiled as she shut the door, slow enough for him to memorize the sound. The next morning, Malik sank into a booth at a tiny diner near his place. The regulars nodded as he came in. He ordered black coffee, grits, pulled out his phone. The screen lit up with a photo from Maya, a crayon drawing of a sandwich, wobbly lines and all. Visual inspiration. Get it right. He chuckled into his cup. Then came the voice from the booth behind him. Too loud. Too smug. Isn't that the guy with the rich white woman on Instagram? Malik stiffened. Yeah, just her project, another voice sneered. He didn't turn, didn't speak, but felt the sting sink deep. Not the words themselves. The tone, the disdain, the assumption that he didn't belong in her world. He put the phone down and watched the gray morning crawl across the parking lot. Suddenly, he wondered if the warmth he felt with Maya could ever survive the cold stares and bitter whispers. Monday came like a hammer. Early, loud, unbending. Malik buried himself in work. A short in a kitchen panel in Matthews. A busted breaker in Dilworth. A humming fuse at an old church on Beatty's Ford Road. Each job was a reason not to think. Not to remember the words echoing in the back of his mind. It wasn't the insult. It was how easily strangers decided he didn't belong. Tuesday morning. Malik, his boss called him in before dispatch. You got any idea why the Simons account pulled out? Malik shook his head. Haven't worked that site in weeks. Yeah, well, the boss crossed thick arms. They said it's an image thing. Saw something online. You do something I should know about? Malik clenched his jaw. I've done my job. That's it. A long stare. Then a slow nod. All right. Let's keep it that way. Malik walked out tight-chested. Not because he had done anything wrong, but because when the world decided who you were, the truth didn't matter. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, Maya's name on the screen. His thumb hovered. He could tell her about the account. The whispers. The sting of knowing he was being watched, weighed, and found wanting. But he didn't call. Not yet. Wednesday. Evening came with Maya's voice on the line. You free? She asked. Define free. I'm standing in my driveway with 2 milkshakes and no one to share them with. He smiled despite himself. You bought 2 on purpose, didn't you? No comment. Come over. Be here in 15. She was on the porch when he pulled up, legs tucked under her, paper cup balanced in her palm. Chocolate peanut butter, she said, holding it out. Figured you for a classic. He sank down beside her, accepting the cup. You were right. They drank in silence for a while, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. Then she spoke. I need to ask you something. He looked at her, wary. All right. Did someone say something to you? He tightened. Why? Because something shifted. You're still here, but part of you pulled back. He glanced down at the milkshake in his hands. I heard something. At a diner. Someone called me your project. Maya exhaled sharply, rising to her feet. I'm sorry. He shook his head. You don't owe me an apology. I do when they say it because of me. He finally met her gaze. It's not your fault I don't fit into their world. She stepped closer, voice firm. You fit into mine. And that's the only one I care about. A beat. Then another. I lost a client, he said quietly. Simons pulled out after that video of us went online. Maya went still. What video? Someone snapped a picture of us at the park. Guess it made its rounds. Damn it. She started pacing, voice rising. I am so tired of this. So tired of people acting like they get to decide who I can be with, who you can be. He stood. Maybe we take a break. The words hit the air like a hammer. Maya spun. What? Not from each other, he said quietly. From the noise. From all of it. I don't want to, but if I don't take a breath, I'll suffocate. She searched his face. Not pleading. Not begging. But wounded. Okay, she said finally. If that's what you need. He nodded. It's not forever. I know. They stood like that for a long moment, silence holding them between care and caution. Then Maya stepped closer, pressed her palm to his chest. You're not a project, Malik Carter, she said softly. You're not small. Not temporary. Not a symbol. Not a rebellion. Not a mistake. He met her gaze, voice rough. Then why does it feel like I'm always fighting to prove that? She didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, she rested her forehead against his, and for a moment, the world quieted. When he left that night, the porch light stayed on longer than usual. And Malik knew. The real battle hadn't even started. Thursday. Rain fell in slow, silver streaks across the windshield of Malik's pickup. He watched the droplets race down the glass, engine quiet, wipers still. A week had passed since the milkshakes on Maya's porch. 5 long days. 4 nights of half sleep. 3 missed calls. 1 growing sense of regret. The silence hadn't brought peace. It had brought clarity. He missed her. Missed the way she said his name like it meant more than 5 letters. Missed how she looked past the uniform, into the man wearing it. Malik started the engine. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just drove. Her house appeared the same as always. Wide porch, warm lights, wind chimes chiming faintly. But tonight felt different. Quieter. No music drifting from windows. No shadow moving across the blinds. He almost didn't knock. Then he did. A few seconds later, the door opened. Maya stood there in an oversized hoodie, sleeves pushed to the elbows, a smudge of paint on her wrist. No surprise in her eyes. Just something softer. Worn. Resolute. Hey, he said. Hey. I was in the area. Her eyebrow arched. You came from 4th Street. He smiled sheepishly. Okay, I lied. I wasn't. She stepped aside, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You coming in? Or just measuring humidity? Malik crossed the threshold. The air was rich with the smell of acrylic and fresh coffee. Canvases lined the walls. An easel stood half-draped with a canvas, a storm rendered in blues and charcoal, like a sea swallowing a city. Yours? He asked. Maya glanced at the painting, brushing paint-dusted fingers down the leg of her sweats. Always is. And for the first time in days, Malik felt like he was standing where he belonged. If you want, I can also help you break this into chapters, intensify character beats, or craft a version with even higher tension. Would you like that? Not temporary. Therapy, he asked, brushing closer to Maya's canvas. You ever gonna show these to anyone? No, she said, brushing a hand over the paint. They're not for anyone but me. Malik studied the strokes, sharp, urgent, chaotic. They felt like wounds that refused to scab. Looks like they'd been waiting a long time to exist. Maya didn't respond. Instead, she sank to the floor beside the window, knees pulled tight. Back when I was 14, she said quietly, a teacher said I had talent. Then she told me not to waste it on urban angst. Urban. That was the word. Malik sank down beside her. A counselor told me to aim for electrician because college might frustrate me. They both chuckled, soft and bitter. Malik shook his head. I didn't come here to dredge up the past. Then why did you? Maya asked, voice low. He drew a breath. Because I don't want to be the man who walks away when things get hard. And I realize, this isn't noise. She tilted her head. Then what is it? Real. Rare. Terrifying. He met her gaze. A beat, and she whispered, same. They stayed like that for a while, rain whispering its apologies down the windows. Then Maya rose, crossed to the bookshelf, and pulled out a slim folder. There's something I should show you. Malik opened it slowly. Photos. Screenshots. Social media posts. Images of him and Maya. Photos cropped from the park. Snapped as he left her house. Some mocking. Others vile. All invasive. I didn't want to show you earlier, Maya said softly. You were already carrying enough. Malik clenched his jaw. How long? Since the park. Someone at that party recognized you, and the rest spiraled. Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged. I didn't want to scare you off. He gave her a long, searching look. You think I scare easy? Her faint smile was an answer. You asked for space, Malik. I thought you were gone. He exhaled, looking down at his hands. I thought space would protect us. But all it gave was room for the noise to grow. He looked up. There's no safe distance from this. From them. No, she agreed quietly. But there is strength in being close. He met her gaze. I'm here. And I'm not hiding. She came closer, brushing knees with him. I can't promise it'll get easier. Don't want easier, he said. I want truth. And what do you want that to look like? He thought for a long moment. I want to build. Not as a guest in your world or mine, but in a space that's ours. She smiled as her fingers found his. Then let's start. That night, they watched the storm from the couch. No wine. No music. Just silence shared, not suffered. Maya rested her head on his shoulder. You know, I've been called too bold, too cold, too much. He pressed a kiss to her temple. They missed the best one. What's that? Yours. And in that quiet room, lit only by the hum of a street lamp and the weight of their honesty, the line between fear and belonging blurred and disappeared. 2 months passed. Not quickly, not in a blur. In the slow, deliberate rhythm of making a life. Sunday mornings became sacred. Malik brought breakfast, warm from the corner diner. Maya pressed strong coffee in the French press, she swore, made it taste more alive. They sat by the window, knees touching, sun pouring across the floor like a slow river. The noise didn't stop. Whispers still hissed online. Gossip circulated. But Malik stopped listening. Maya stopped flinching. They were building something that was theirs. Then came the morning Maya pulled out a tablet and said, I have an idea. Malik smiled. That sentence usually ends with paint or mischief. Closer than you think. She handed him the tablet. A sleek website. Carterworks. A bold logo. A clenched fist gripping a lightning bolt. A tagline. Built with hands. Driven by heart. Malik stared. Is this real? I've been working on it. Branding. Copy. Layout. You said you wanted to go independent. So I drew a blueprint. He looked up, voice hoarse. Why? Because when I see something worth building, I don't wait for permission. I invest. Too soon, he asked. Too soon for what? Too soon for a man to put his name on his own work. What do you want from me? He asked, voice soft. Not doubt. Honesty. Her gaze didn't waver. I want to build with you. Not for you. Not around you. With you. By the end of the week, Malik filed for a business license. Maya helped design the flyers. They printed the first batch together at a shop down the block. Saturday morning, side by side, they walked neighborhoods, taping flyers to poles, dropping them into mailboxes. One older man, leaning on a cane, squinted at a flyer and asked, "You Carter?" Malik smiled. "That's me. Good hands matter, son. My boy hired some tech who couldn't tell a wire from spaghetti. I'll call you." Malik grinned the rest of the block. But resistance came quickly. A week later, in South Charlotte, a sharp-suited woman opened the door, eyes narrowing. "You're from the new company. Carter Works." "Yes, ma'am." "Malik Carter." She crossed her arms. "You were on that blog with Maya Williams." Malik didn't flinch. "She's a friend of my husband's firm. Do you really think this stunt of yours will last?" Malik tightened the last wire, wiped his hands, and met her gaze. Honest work lasts longer than gossip. Then he left. No scene. No reply. Just the quiet sound of the door clicking shut. Back in the truck, he sank into the seat and exhaled, brushing sweat from his forehead. A text buzzed. "Maya, lunch at the shop. Bring those paint hands." That afternoon, in the studio, walls lined with smaller canvases, a chalkboard menu still marked closed, he told her about the job. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't explode. Instead, she pulled a canvas down from the wall. "This one," she said, brushing its surface, "I made after my ex said I was too much for the room." A swirl of tangled lines and broken shapes. Fractured threads stitched together with gold. Almost destroyed it. She smiled faintly. But broken doesn't mean disposable. Then she met his gaze. "You're not a phase, Malik. Not a scandal. Not a whisper that fades when the news cycle changes." He stepped closer, brushing a hand along the edge of the canvas. "And you're not my savior or my shield." "Good," she said, brushing her fingers through his. "I want to be your damn partner." He pulled her closer until their foreheads touched. "Then let's build." Weeks passed. Then months. Carter Works grew slow and strong. Maya launched a small design studio in the same space. Together, they hosted free monthly fix-it days for seniors, single parents, and veterans. Whispers didn't stop, but neither did they. Each quiet win felt like another brick laid in the foundation of belonging. And every time Malik passed the old bench in Maya's studio, the one she refused to paint over, he remembered that night. "You're not small," she'd said. "You're not temporary." Each time she watched him work, hands fixing a broken panel or a frayed wire, she felt it too. He was enough. Not because he fit. Not because he molded himself to fit someone else's space. But because he refused to disappear. Then came the phone call that changed the air. A Monday morning. The sun hadn't yet broken the skyline when the number came up. "Mr. Carter? This is Angela Morton, estate manager for the Hale family. We have an urgent electrical issue in Myers Park. Could you come by for a consultation?" Malik sat up straighter. The Hales were old money. The kind whispered in real estate offices. The kind of name inked into foundation plaques. He glanced at the text. An odd prickle rose in his chest. But work was work. "Be there by 11, he replied. At 10:55, he pulled into the long, gated drive. The house rose like a relic. White columns. Terraced lawn. A garage bigger than most apartments. A woman in pale gray and pearls met him at the door. "Thank you for coming. The issue is in the sunroom. The chandelier shorts out every time it rains. We've had 3 techs try. None succeeded. I'll do my best, ma'am." He followed her upstairs, toolkit in hand, boots silent on the polished wood. The wiring was antique, delicate. He traced the lines, checked voltage, replaced a corroded connector. He didn't notice the voice until it spoke. "Well, this is unexpected." Malik turned. In the doorway stood Stephen Grayson, partner at Langford Grayson Law. Board member. Maya's ex-fiancé. They held each other's gaze for a long, breathless moment. "Didn't realize you moonlighted as an electrician?" Malik didn't flinch. "I own the business." Grayson stepped closer, arms crossed. "Maya has always had a taste for unconventional projects." Malik clipped the frayed wire. "I'm not her project." "No." Grayson tilted his head. "Then what are you?" Her way of rebelling? A message to her father. Malik didn't look up. "I build things that last, including myself." Grayson gave a faint chuckle. "We'll see how long that lasts when the novelty wears off." He turned and walked out. Malik finished the job, tested the connections, left an invoice. No words. No glance backward. Back in the truck, he sank into the seat and let the spring wind wash over him. Then a text from Maya lit the screen. Lunch at the shop. Bring your paint hands. That night, in the studio, Maya watched as he sank down before one of her canvases. What happened? She asked. Grayson was at the Hale house. Her eyes narrowed. What did he say? Enough. He looked down, brushing calloused hands together. But I have a question for you. She waited. If it ever came down to your world and mine, which would you choose? Maya didn't answer right away. She walked to the old bench, sank down, thought for a long moment. I don't believe I should have to choose, she said quietly. But if the line is drawn, I'll burn that line to the ground. Malik stepped closer. Then let's build on the ashes. 2 days later, Maya's open letter landed in the Charlotte Ledger. When we love outside the lines. It didn't name names, but it didn't have to. Its words were sharp and sure. Some will call what I've built with Malik Carter rebellion. Let them. What we're doing is construction. Not of scandal, not of noise, but of equity, of belonging, of a space where we stand together, regardless of those who would draw lines between us. By noon, it had been shared over 2,000 times. Malik didn't post, didn't comment, but one email stood out from Angela Morton. Subject, the Hileys would like to cancel future services. No explanation. Malik replied, noted, thank you. Then he turned to Maya, brushing a hand down her back as she worked. We just lost a client. She didn't flinch. We'll gain 10 more. That night, standing on the rooftop of the studio, overlooking the city that refused to define them, Malik pulled Maya closer. Grayson said I'm temporary. She smiled, brushing hair from his forehead. Then let's outlast him. Spring came like a flood. 5 days of wind and rain that pounded the city, filling low streets and snapping lines. Malik worked every shift, every call. Seniors with no lights. Single moms with broken fridges. Apartment managers begging for resets. Day after day, the storm tested him until every muscle ached and every breath felt labored. Then came the article. Community hero or social climber? A grainy photo of Malik beside an elderly woman. A sneer of a caption. Marketing or manipulation? Twisted quotes. Old photos. Whispers molded into weapons. Malik didn't finish reading. Just turned the phone off, grabbed his keys, and drove. He found Maya in the studio, paint smudged across her hand, wearing a hoodie he'd left a week ago. She didn't ask. It's out, isn't it? He nodded. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You didn't write it, but I made it possible by putting us in the light. Malik sank down beside her, brushing both hands down his face. They didn't come for us. They came for me. They turned everything we built into a punchline. No, Maya's voice was sharp, sure. They tried, but we're still standing. She glanced at him, brushing hair from his forehead. Are you tired? He looked down at the floor, voice low. I used to think I could outwork judgment. That if I was good enough, useful enough, they'd let me in. But I was wrong. They don't care what I fix. They care what I represent. Maya smiled, brushing a hand down the side of his face. Then you're not the only one. They sat like that for a long moment. Shoulders pressed together. The storm tapping its quiet applause at the windows. Then Maya glanced down at her phone, smiled faintly, and handed it to him. An email from NPR Charlotte. Subject, we'd like to feature your story. Malik met Maya's gaze, voice soft. Then let's give them a story worth telling. We'd love to interview you both. Malik stared at the email on Maya's phone. NPR Charlotte. An invite to talk about resilience, about building across divides. You think this helps? He asked quietly. Maya smiled, brushing a streak of paint from her fingers. It's a chance to tell our own story. A week later, the segment aired. 15 minutes of Malik, hands folded, voice strong. I'm not interested in being a headline, he said. I want to build things that don't fall apart in a storm. And I found someone who holds the same blueprint. The host turned to Maya. What does it mean for you to build with someone from a different world? Maya didn't flinch. We build with what we have. He brought hands. I brought the room. The backlash came, sure, but so did the support. Church groups, small business owners, elderly clients who mailed handwritten notes. A woman who said her son listened to the interview and cried for the first time in a year. The same blog tried another hit piece, but no one shared it. Not anymore. The story had shifted, not because it was rewritten for them, but because they refused to be broken by it. One night, Malik stood on Maya's porch. The same porch where she'd offered him a milkshake and a question months ago. You scared? She asked. He watched the glow from the studio down the block, felt the sting of autumn air. Yeah, he said, voice low. but not of them anymore. Then what? Of how much I care about this. About you. All of it. Maya pressed closer, resting a hand on his chest. That's not fear, Malik. That's weight. The kind worth carrying. Autumn came quietly. Not with fanfare, but with golden leaves whispering across the city. The calls came steadily now, not because of a headline, but because of trust. Malik still showed up to every job with a clean shirt, a firm handshake, and a yes ma'am, or no sir, no matter the client's age. But more often than not, those doors now opened with a smile and a nod that said, this is the guy who stays. One Thursday afternoon, Malik stood on the porch of a modest two-story house in Belmont. Not a showplace, not a statement piece, just a well-worn door, freshly painted. He stepped inside. The walls still held a hint of primer, the floorboards creaked, but morning light spilled across the space like a promise. 2 mugs sat on the counter, his and Maya's. A stack of paint swatches marked dining room. In the back room, Maya was barefoot, pencil in hand, faint lines tracing a mural across the drywall. What are you doing? Malik asked. Planning, she said. For. She smiled. A mural. Of what? Not sure yet. But I think it starts with hands. He crossed the room and pressed a kiss to her temple. You know this still feels wild, he said. What does? You. Me. Here. Together. Still standing. She turned to him, voice soft but strong. It's not wild, Malik. It's earned. 2 weeks later came the dedication. Not for the house, but for the shop. What used to be an old, dusty storefront had been transformed. One side held tools, shelves, and electrical sketches. The other brimmed with canvases and paints, long tables where neighborhood kids came every Saturday to learn. A simple wooden sign hung out front, the Williams and Carter studio. That afternoon, friends came. Old clients, new neighbors, teachers, grandparents, even Devin's grandmother, a lemon pound cake wrapped in wax paper cradled in her hands. The space felt like a beacon, a quiet declaration that belonging doesn't happen by accident. It's built, plank by plank. Maya spoke first. No notes, no pretense. There's a difference, she said, voice clear, between being given something and being trusted to build it. This space didn't fall into our laps. We laid every plank ourselves, tightened every hinge, painted every corner. We built it knowing the world would ask us to choose between love and peace, between truth and safety. We chose each other, and we'll keep choosing. Then came Malik. He looked out at the room, elders brushing away tears, kids grinning, Maya leaning in as if he held a future worth defending. I used to think the only thing I'd ever own was a toolbox, he said. Turns out I get to own something a lot heavier. Hope. The room fell quiet. Not the silence of doubt or hesitation, but the stillness that comes when a room knows it has witnessed a moment worth remembering. And when the applause came, it wasn't a roar. It was a wave. Not thunder. Not noise. Just the sound of belonging. That night, Malik and Maya stood on their porch wrapped in a single blanket, leaves brushing the steps, wind whispering down the block. I still can't believe it, Malik said. Maya smiled and tightened the blanket around them both. Then let me remind you, she said. We didn't just survive. We built. And beneath that autumn sky, in a city that had tried to draw lines between them, 2 people stood closer than ever, knowing this was more than a story rewritten. This was a story reclaimed. Please subscribe to this channel.